This is a lecture from Open Tuition. For the free lecture notes that go with this podcast, please visit opentuition.com.
But I said if he's going to ask, I can't say this enough times, you're going to get MPV, there's absolutely no question. It'll still probably be a 4 or 5 year project like yesterday and this morning. But it's got to be reasonably soon that he does ask one of these extra bits. If he's going to ask one, it'll probably be capital action. So I really would make sure it's not hard, but I'll make sure you've got it. Less likely, but I better do because it is possible, is replacement. So a quick example of a manual replacement, and here again it's very much, to be honest, learning rules. I say it is very much learning rules, but let me quickly remind you what we're doing. Otherwise it just becomes a bit nonsense. What's happening here, before you look at an example, a good example is a car or a truck or something. If the company, for any reason, has bought a car, the company buys you a car doesn't last forever, and so, presumably, the company needs you to have a car for effectively ever, but the car will need replacing every so often. True? And so, whether it's a car, whether it's a machine, or whatever it is, we assume we need it forever, but because the car won't last forever, every so often we're going to need to buy a new car. Alright? But the thing is, you have various choices. It may be that your company makes you keep the car 10 years before they give you a new one. But of course, if they make you keep it 10 years, as the car gets older, the repair costs will get higher and higher. And by the time you come to sell it, the car's unlikely to be worth very much. Agreed? So the company may decide instead they'll replace the car perhaps every 3 years. Because although the car's still working fine, if they buy you a new one every 3 years, it keeps the repair bills a lot lower. You're all with me? Because it never gets really old. And what's more, when you come to sell it after 3 years, clearly you'd expect to get more for it than if it was 10 years old. And the question is, which is better? Would it be better to replace it every 10 years and have very high repair bills? On that alone, obviously, it'd be better to replace every 3 years. The trouble is, of course, the capital cost. If you replace every 3 years, now having to pay out for a new one every 3 years, clearly, on that bit, it'd be cheaper to wait 10 years. You're still getting that? So whatever it is, we assume, it's car, whether it's machine, we assume we need it forever. It's simply working out which is cheaper. Is it cheaper to replace every 3 years? Is it cheaper to replace every 10 years? Or whatever. All right? So that's what's happening. Here there is no really quick way, it's very repetitive. Look at my example. I'll do one bit to remind you and then you can finish it. My example, a machine costs 100,000. A machine costs 100,000. It lasts for 3 years. Its maintenance or repair bills are on that table below. In the first year, it's going to cost you 25,000. Repairs in the second year, 30 in the third year. 5. As it gets older, it's more expensive. And equally, the scrap values. If you were to change it every year, you'd be able to sell it for 75. If you wait 2 years, you only get 60. If you wait 3 years, only 20. The older it gets, the less its sale value. So is everybody clear what we're giving there? And our job is to decide how often should we replace it. Is it cheaper to replace it every year? Or will it be cheaper to replace every 2 years or every 3 years? Right? So be honest with me. We can all learn rules, but is everybody clear what the problem is? Again, especially because of any written incomes. All right, the cost of capital is 15%. Let me go through the arithmetic. I spent some time last time explaining the logic. I'm not going to repeat all that. Here it very much is just being automatic. There's no quick way. The only way you can do it is to cost out each alternative. I'm going to cost out a 2-year replacement. If you're happy with replacing every 2 years, then you can finish it. You can do it for 3-year replacement, 1-year replacement. Okay? So, 2-year replacement. I'll say it's very automatic. I'm going to teach you just rules. Step 1 is calculate the present value of the first machine. Now remember, I'm doing 2-year replacement. And so what are the cash flows for the first machine? The operating flows is simply the maintenance. Remember, they always assume the ends of years. So at the end of the first year at time 1, we pay 25,000. At time 2, we pay 30. We're only keeping the machine 2 years. Sorry, usually working thousands. But here I've stuck dollars, I'll keep the dollars. All right? Their costs, obviously. The capital flows. You've got your original cost at time 0, which is 100,000. We're keeping it 2 years. And if we scrap at the end of 2 years, its value at the end of 2 years is 60. Is everybody with me here? It's very unlikely in one of these to bring in tax or inflation. If he did, it's normal rules. You know, on your maintenance, you pay 25, you would save tax at whatever percent, and so on. Here, though, there's no tax inflation. I doubt there would be. As a result, the net cash flows 100 at time 0, 25 at time 1, an inflow of 30 at time 2. Sorry, I'm not going to keep pausing. Do shout, though. We're all with me, I hope. The cost of capital is 15%, so your discount factors. 1 year at 15 is 0.87. 2 years, 0.756. And so the present values. Check me, somebody. Well, somebody check. I know it's the present value. Be very careful in these with your signs, your plus minus. You know, we've no revenue here simply because we assume if there was any revenue, the revenue's the same however often you replace the machine. You with me? And so it's irrelevant. All we're after is the cheapest cost. It's very easy to make a silly mistake and forget the negative. And of course, because it's cost, the total present value is effectively costing 99. Alright? Alright, that's step 1. Work out the present value of the first machine. The problem is, though, before we go into step 2, remember, you're going to replace every 2 years, and so that same pattern will keep being repeated. And it's effectively like paying out 99,000 every 2 years. You do the same thing for a 3-year replacement. Oh, maybe you get 110,000. But that would be like 110 every 3 years. You can't immediately compare 99 every 2 years with 110 every 3 years. You with me? And so to be able to compare, we need a second step. And although, if you've read the textbook, there are actually two alternatives which give the same final result, the alternative you must learn for the exam is the one I'm about to write down, because very often he specifies this approach. We calculate what we call the equivalent annual cost. And the way you calculate, I'm not going to chat again through the logic for it. In the exam, he doesn't really ask you, he just expects you to do it. But even though replacement isn't very likely, to be safe, you must learn this. The equivalent annual cost, it's the present value of the first machine divided by the annuity discount factor for the replacement period. Now, I'll make sure you're clear what I mean. We'll put the numbers in virtually immediately. But that is not given you on the formula sheet. And although, as I keep saying, I'd actually be surprised this time if you needed it, but it's not much to learn. To be safe, I would learn it. It's terribly easy to apply. We'll check the numbers here. But the equivalent annual cost. Check you're clear what I mean, though. We're still on a 2-year cycle. Tell me, please, what's the present value of the first machine? Oh, I thought that was the easy bit. What's the present value of the first machine, somebody? Oh, sorry. PV stands for present value. I'm worried now. You're all pulling funny faces. The present value of the first machine. Please, maybe I've missed a problem. No, I'm not being funny. If anybody's not sure, don't be shy. It's 99,070. You divide it by the annuity factor of the replacement period. Remember, I'm doing 2-year replacement. So it's the 2-year annuity discount factor. I didn't write, but I think obviously at the cost of capital, which here is 15%. And so, check, you can read it, you can find the figure. On the annuity table, 15% 2 years. Have I got the right figure here? 1.626? And so, arithmetically, that comes to 99,070 divided by 1.626. Is it 60929, please, to the nearest dollar? I've not put brackets, some people get upset, but since I've written equivalent annual cost, you don't really need to put the brackets, that's your choice, all right? But what we're saying, without messing around, chat, effectively we're saying that first machine, keep repeating it, was equivalent to 99,000 every 2 years, which in turn is equivalent to 60,929 per annum forever. Replacing every 2 years is equivalent to paying out 61,000 a year forever. And of course, if we can do the same for 3 years and for 2 years, if 3 years are equivalent to 70,000 a year, then of course you can then compare and decide which is cheapest. Alright? Alright, well I say it's repetitive, but it shouldn't take you many seconds. If anybody's unhappy about 2 year, now's your chance to ask. Otherwise, please, can you do 3-year replacement and 1-year replacement? If you want to check, I'm going to do 3 years first. So do 3-year replacement, check the screen. If it's wrong, that's me. If it's right, do 1 year replacement. If you've done it, I'd be grateful if you check to me. It is just sort of learning the rules, and then it's speed. Rather stupidly, it's amazing when it has been asked how many get the right numbers and then the wrong decision, but that's just stupid. Here, the equivalent annual cost for 1 year is 64,943, for 3 years is 69, for 2 years is 60. Which would be the best, please? Say again? 2 years? Yeah, it's just, it may sound terribly silly. It's amazing how many people, though, get the right figures and then take the highest. These are costs, so you'll take the lowest. But the correct answer is you'll replace every 2 years. However, the real reason I've interrupted is that I keep saying this is fairly unlikely, but if he does ask it, it's 100% certain what most of the written would be. And let's see how many people can think of how many things. In real life, what reservations would you have about your decision? Go on, I'm not prepared to spend more than 3 or 4 minutes, but the written here could easily be 12 marks, just that. What reservations would you have about your decision, please, here? We're replacing every 2 years. What limitations or reservations? Come, a monkey could do part A, quite literally. Well, my sister could. But part B, in the past it was 15 marks once. I doubt if it would be in yours. It would be far more important. What limitations, anybody? What reservations about our decision?
Administration costs on replacement.
Okay, can I make that more general? Have we included all the costs? Yeah? That's a general one of any MPV question, but have we included all cash effects? That's it. That applies to any MPV question. It's very hard in real life to identify all the cash effects. Alexander's was one example. Admin costs, whatever. All right? Any other reservations? Oh, all right. In any NPV question, non-financial factors. If it's a car, is it an electric car? All right, that's relevant to any NPV question, whether it's replacement or not. Anything else? Say again. All right, the estimates of the cash flows. For any NPV question, they're always estimates. So where did I get the maintenance costs from? Particularly, how are you going to estimate the scrap value? Do you agree? And of course, what about inflation? Even if there was inflation in the question, even if there was inflation, how have you estimated inflation? Again, that's a general point for any NPV question. Any other reservations? Any extra reservations about the idea of it being replacement? What I mean is, those are reservations you'd agree. Oh, I'll add on the estimate of the cost of capital. Those are standard limitations for any NPV question you ever do. Anybody think of any extra problems given this particular problem, this idea of replacing every 2 years or whatever? Come on, there's some desperately important ones. Or, sorry, I hope obvious ones when I say it. You'd write those even if it was just one machine. Well, I'll say it slightly differently. The important one, I think very obviously, is this. Even if you were just doing one machine finish, like we were doing this morning, obviously your problem is estimating. But even if you'd estimated the cash flows properly, surely we're assuming that exactly the same cash flows keep being repeated. Would you agree? Does that not assume that we keep buying the same machine with the same cash flows? And in real life, surely that's a huge problem of what we've done. You might have a company car. They might replace it every 3 years. But even if they keep to the same sort of, level of car, you understand me? The chances of having a car with the same cash flows in 10 years is virtually impossible. Because several things will happen. Well, one of two obvious things. It may be that the machine is no longer available and you have to buy a different machine. Sorry, if I'm writing too badly or too short, ask me. But obviously with cars, whatever car you have at the present, come back in 10 years, that car won't be available. You'll be getting an equivalent car. Of course, a different car will have different cash flows. True? Perhaps with machines there's more chances still available, but even if it is still available, do you not normally expect that things will be improved? If the car, even if your car still exists, or you've been able to buy a Volkswagen Golf for years, but there have been technical improvements, perhaps they don't need repairing as often now. You would agree? But there's another reason why. Improvements. Again, I'm keeping brief, but you are all clear what I mean. So there's a huge problem that the chances of the same cash flows being repeated forever are rather ridiculous. True? Anything else? The two other important bits. Anybody think of any other problems? All right, I won't waste your time. The approach we've taken, whether it's immediately obvious or not, it does assume that we need a machine forever. Or certainly for a very, very long time. What I'm getting at there is, suppose I turned around and said to you, we only need a machine for 4 years. Well, of course, if we only needed it for 4 years, I think the approach we're taking is a bit silly. You'd set up your cash flows for 4 years. Fine enough, you could replace every year and we'd have these flows, or it could be every 2 years, or it could be 3 years and then just 1 year. You take my point? In which case, I think what we'd have done is rather silly. And I hope you can imagine, could give a completely different answer. Do you all agree? This does assume we carry on replacing, as I say, forever's a long time. But we carry on replacing for a long time. The third point to make, but if anybody's thinking of another, by all means shout. The third point's perhaps slightly silly, but I don't care. In the exam, you will only ever consider replacing at yearly intervals. Every 1 year, every 2 years, every 3 years. What about replacing every 2.5 years? You'd never do it in the exam. But would you agree it could be better? So it's a fairly minor point, but even so, we've only considered again, save me writing an essay, I think you know what I mean. Whole year replacement. So I say that is fairly minor, but even so, in the exam it only ever would be, every 2 years, etc. But I think I made the point. It might be better to have something else. Right? Yeah. So, why do I keep saying sorry? If that were 15 marks in the exam, I doubt these days it'd be that big, but it could be a pretty big written. There is actually quite a lot you can write. I'll say the earlier bits were bits you'd write for any MPV limitations. But I hope you agree, those extra bits are specific to this sort of problem. Okay?